Hello and welcome back to another Property Pickle. John, how's it going today?
Well, not bad, thank you. Not bad. There's always a few challenges, but we battle on.
That's what keeps it interesting, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Speaking of
Never a
interesting,
dull day.
never a dull day. Speaking of which, we have got today's Property Pickle, which is the title of this one is called The Planning That Was Never Checked.
Oof.
And here's the scenario.
Right.
You bought it, you celebrated, and then you found out that you can't build what you thought you could.
Oldest trick in the book, that is, Michelle. Oldest trick in the book. Yes. This one's going to be fun. I feel sorry for them because it happens, and it's amazing how often it does happen. Especially at auction, of course. Special auction.
It's true. And that's one of your areas of expertise. Yep. So this particular pickle, a buyer secures a commercial building planning to convert it into flats. After completion, they discover a restrictive covenant and a flood zone issue that make planning far more complex than they realise. So,
okay, two problems. Which should we do first? Only two. They've done well. They've done well. I've had a few more than that on occasions. So, which one should we, ladies first? Which one should we do first, Michelle?
Well, do you know what? The flood zone one, this caught me out. Thankfully, I never went ahead and bought this particular property, but it looked great until I realised that it was in this flood zone area, and I knew that there was no way I was going to get planning on. Now, that's something that can just be really easily overlooked because it didn't look like it was, near a river anywhere nearby or anything.
No, so flood zone 1, 2 and 3. Flood zone 1, no problem. Flood zone 2, probably not a problem. Flood zone 3, problem. Now, I would argue that in most cases, you wouldn't get planning unless you've got a flood risk assessment done, which should tell you whether, even if it's in flood zone 3, which is pretty unlikely, you may not get a mortgage on them when you finish them, by the way, if it's flood zone 3, you shouldn't be doing it. However, there are other challenges apart from people think of flooding, your house is flooded. Now, there's lots of others. For instance, there's wave surge, which I got caught out on in North Norfolk. It was 1.5 miles from the damn sea. And they said, oh, yeah, you can't have planning because of wave surge. What? It's 1.5 miles away. What are you talking about? Oh, no, yeah, we've estimated that in 10 years' time, all this nonsense. So that's one of them. So that's one thing you've got to be careful of. The next thing you've got to be careful is coastal erosion. It's not that far away from here, Thorpeness, lovely Suffolk holiday village. It was having a bit of coastal erosion, but the other month it lost 60 foot. And someone had bought a house at auction that was cheap. They should have realised why it was so cheap. Anyway, they were lucky because it fell into the sea before they completed. So they got their money back. How lucky are they? 200,000 quid. Anyway, and then you've got things like surface water. Now, surface water, that probably wouldn't stop you getting planning, but it would be a problem. It would be a condition you need to sort out potentially. And also putting surface water into the drains. So on a big estate, and if you do a big development now, you need to do what's called a suds pond, which is a pond that takes all the rainwater from the gutters and everything else. It doesn't go into the main drains because the main drains everywhere are over capacity. So if it's a small development, obviously you can't put a pond in, you can't put a suds pond in. So sometimes they make you put what's called a retention tank in so the water doesn't flood into the drains too quick. So it goes into a tank, very expensive to do. We've had to do this in the past. Then there's rain gardens. They might suggest you have a rain garden, which I never even heard of, but it basically soaks up the water. That's the whole point. Now, we've got one at the moment where we're battling with the water board. I'm sure they're not called the water board anymore. I'm a dinosaur, but anyway, something like that, where they're saying, well, you're putting the surface water into the drains. Well, yeah, it's a town centre. What else do we do? Well, we might want you to redo the drains for us in the road. So, God knows what that's going to cost. So it is an issue, Michelle, really is. And it's a much bigger issue than people realise. So I think this person is, whether it's, I said, I'm surprised they got planning on it. it could be a condition. So preconditions are a massive problem with new build, especially. Conversions as well, but new build especially, where the preconditions you might have. We had one where we had 26 preconditions. We bought it at auction. We knew there was a problem with it all. And not one of the 26 preconditions had been sorted out. And they'd spent $1.5 million building some of these houses already. I mean, how mad is that? And they were told to stop. They went bust, obviously. So we took it over a year to get all 26 preconditions dealt with. So preconditions before you can start work, really, really important to check. So getting planning is one thing, but sorting out the preconditions is really important. So on the flooding side, that's heavy duty. That's hard work, very hard work.
And where people assume like permitted development, they assume that it means it's guaranteed, right?
Anything. Yeah.
But the clue is in the word permitted. You still need permission from the council, and unless you get that, it's not guaranteed. So again, it's coming back to having these exit strategies, and you almost want to say, if you can do nothing to the property, it still needs to work as it's standing there today. Just having that as a backup plan. So that was one with the flood issue, and then the other one was a restrictive covenant. So I've often catch people out.
Yeah, I mean, so over the years, we've had a lot of problems with restrictive covenants. If it's very old, it's insurable, and for very little money, to be fair. So it might say, you can't sell alcohol on the premises or some nonsense like that from 1820 or whatever. Anything over 50, 60 years, 70 years old probably isn't a problem. You can probably insure it. However, where you've got to be careful is if the insurers know you've gone and found the beneficiary of the covenant, they won't insure it. So don't go looking for them. Don't go looking for the member of the family from 2 generations ago who might have died, might not. It's been passed down in generations, because they won't insure it. And you can't insure something that hasn't got planning. So it's no point. So we were buying a place quite recently, and it had a covenant to say it had to be commercial, couldn't be residential. Bit of a problem with converting it to residential. But the insurers cannot insure something you haven't got planning for. So the fact that you go for planning and there's a public notice about it, everything else is almost proof that if no one comes forward, they're likely to insure it. But of course, if someone does come forward, you've got a problem. Now, if they do come forward and say, hang on a minute, we've got a covenant on this, you go, okay, how much do you want to lift the covenant? And we've had that situation where, we might pay them 20, 30, 100 grand, whatever, depending what it is, to lift the covenant. It's a result for them. And I've done it the other way as round, where we've put a covenant on the property because we didn't want it going for, if it gets planning or more houses, and people come to us and go, oh, there's a covenant. And yeah, there is. Well, how much do you want to lift it? Happy days. I mean, that's like Christmas come early, isn't it? Free money. So, so there's both sides of it really. But with covenants, I would you need to always check before you buy it. Well, the solicitor should be able to, if the solicitor hasn't told you about the covenant, you could probably sue the solicitor, to be honest with you. But if you don't know but you need to investigate it prior to exchanging, obviously. Very important. Very, very important.
And could there be a scenario where you buy an auction and it's not declared?
Well, if it's not declared these days at auction, you can probably go back and sue them or not complete and get your money back, I would say. Trading standards, which is the local authority, are quite hot on auctions now. And when we owned Auction House, we sold our shares a few years ago now. But I mean, we got 40 odd franchises around the country. 1 or 2 of them got done for not declaring something, and they didn't know about it. It was genuine, but they still got fined £2,000 or something for not declaring the fact that it was information that we didn't pass on, we should have known about, or whatever it might be. And that happens to every auction house in the country. All the big boys, everyone has a problem with that because these days the authorities are quite hot on it, and rightly so. So there is more protection at auctions now than there ever was in the past, I would say. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So for anyone who finds himself in this particular pickle, what can they do now? So would you have a like pre-app meeting, or what would you do if you were in the middle?
Well, I think if you've committed to buying it, then you need to, just try and unravel it best you can. The restricted covenant, if it's an old one, you can probably insure it. If it's quite a new one, then you've probably got to speak to them and say, right, how much do you want for it? Have some sort of deal with them. And on the flooding issue, most flood consultants can get round a problem. Most of them can, one way or the other. So I wouldn't. At the end of it, it's not great. And de-risking, we talk about on these shows quite a lot about de-risking, Michelle. And I know you're hot on de-risking, very sensible too. And really, de-risking is sorting these things out prior to exchanging. And I couldn't believe this. I spoke at the Auction House annual conference last year, which is lovely to go back and speak and everything else there. And there's some lawyers before I was on. There were lawyers speaking, and they said that 40% of people that buy at auction do not look at the legal pack, do not have it looked at. I cannot believe that. That is like Russian roulette. It really is. Talk about de-risking. They don't even look at the legal pack. I mean, you could exchange contracts, at the auction, hammer comes down or whatever, and then you could find out that a bridger or a bank or whoever won't lend you the money because there's something in that legal pack that says there's a problem, and that's why it's in the auction in the first place. So that's crazy. I couldn't believe that stat. I couldn't believe it.
Well, it's
Scary.
It's good if you want to get rid of something in auction, I guess.
Well, I mean, we put a few things in auction time to time because to be fair, it's good for cash flow. It's good to keep your money moving and having money coming in and so on. But auctions are great to buy at. You just got to find out why it's in the auction. I know we're sort of going off the subject a bit that way.
Well, it sounds like there's two key people you need here. First of all, the solicitor to check that.
Absolutely.
Check the details, check the contracts.
Yeah.
Check the title deed.
Covenant. Yeah.
And then having a planning consultant really looking at the area before you buy.
Yeah.
Making sure that.
Absolutely, Michelle. I think you're spot on there. And like I said, if anyone's got any in a pickle and they want our help, we can either put you in the right direction or perhaps help ourselves. So yeah,
absolutely. If you want a good planning consultant, we know one, don't we, John?
Yeah, we know one or two of those. So who we work with, and these are people that we work with, you work with, or I work with. So we know they're good. They've been tested out. We wouldn't be giving you advice on someone we never heard of before, whatever recommendation. These are people who we work with and we know we can trust, professionals. Yeah.
So your key action today is to go out and add these planning checks to every pre-purchase.
Everything, definitely.
De-risking. Great. Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.